Hey everybody, Adam Savage at the Met in the Armor Conservation Lab with friend of Tested, Sean. How are you, sir?
Doing well, yourself?
I'm so good, and I'm so happy to be back in this beautiful space. Describe to me what we have here.
We're going to talk a little bit about maces and warhammers.
I love this.
Yeah, they're highly related weapons to each other. They're sort of used in a similar way, and we're just going to show you some examples and sort of talk about it.
All right. What period of time does this encompass?
So mostly we're going to be looking at the sort of 15th and 16th century in Europe, but we're going to discuss a little bit before and to the side just because it's interesting stuff about this kind of material.
There's such a variance in manufacture and fit and finish and ornamentation. This is really cool.
And when you bring in India and Africa and Asia, I mean, the variation is just incredible. But they do serve a very similar purpose.
Amazing.
Smashing, of course.
Yes.
And they're ancient. I mean, they are the weapons you can sort of think of that someone in the medieval period or early modern period would be carrying. It is really one of the oldest.
Right.
Rock on a stick is one of the simplest things you can do.
And a good stick is like every kid's like most important thing to find, right?
Exactly. So we have, in our collection, there's some 33 mace heads in our ancient Near East department. There's more in our Greek and Roman department, our Egyptian department. And what's really fascinating is it seems early on in the ancient world, maces had a symbolic meaning beyond their just use as functional weapons.
Like a scepter almost, or like a...
In a similar idea that having a mace or being depicted with a mace meant something.
Like it's the talking stick.
Or the shut up stick, maybe.
Yes, shut up and listen to me stick.
Mm-hmm. So there are ancient Egyptian mace heads that are intricately carved. Mesopotamian kings are frequently depicted carrying maces, right? It has this symbolism. And that seems to be in the Near East and North Africa, and also seems to be in Europe. If you think of the Bayeux Tapestry that depicts the events leading up to and the Battle of Hastings and the Norman conquest of England, the two most important people in that tapestry from the Norman perspective are William the Conqueror and his half-brother, the Bishop Odo of Bayeux, who seems to have commissioned the tapestry, and both of them are carrying clubs.
Wow.
And there's even a scene which was, carefully depicted of Odo rallying the troops with this club, and it even says, Odo, like with his club, gives strength to the boys.
Wow.
So not only is he depicted carrying this thing, he felt the need to call it out in its own separate section. Like, I was there and I had my stick, in a way.
Right.
And it's because they are a symbol of command at this time. And so this symbolism of the mace and later on the warhammer as a symbol carries on. So it is used by cavalry officers as a sign of rank. It is used up to the present day. There are ceremonial maces in England. The city of London has a ceremonial mace.
Yes. We covered the mace at the Royal Society. Mace, yes.
Yeah, the United States Congress, the Sergeant at Arms has a ceremonial mace. This sticks around. And so we do have, totally non-functional pieces like this one.
I was just wondering if this one was ever used to harm somebody.
Probably not swung at anyone. But yeah, this is made of rock crystal, made in India in the 18th century.
This is made of rock crystal?
Yeah.
How? Okay, my first question is, how did they drill a long tube of rock crystal? Holy cow.
Yeah, very impressive. But again, obviously not meant to be used as a sort of sign of rank and status.
So it's like this is the purely ceremonial version.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we do have, now getting then into Europe, this is what you would call sort of the business end of a mace. When you close your eyes and you think of a mace, this is probably what you're thinking of. You want to take that. So it weighs a little over 2 pounds. Very, very light. You have these, what sort of sets a lot of the European ones apart is these flanges.
These guys?
Yeah.
Right.
Serve two purposes. So So on an unarmored opponent, right? Maces are popular everywhere because you hit anyone with a hard thing, it's gonna hurt. Right?
Yes.
But maces are used in Europe as a sort of an anti-armor weapon.
Really?
So when you have a piece of plate armor, you can't cut through that with a sword. You're not going to slash through it.
Right.
But if you can bludgeon someone, obviously, hit someone in the helmet. All right, it's got a padded lining, but it's stuffed with horsehair and it's made of linen. It's not a modern
gonna
motorcycle
suck.
helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. You hit someone in the hand with a mace. Obviously, doesn't matter if it's armored. You're gonna really damage that hand.
Yeah.
But where it really works against armor is of course constructed of overlapping plates held together with rivets and leather straps. And these slide over each other and allow the body to move while keeping it protected.
Right.
If you nail one of these with a mace or a warhammer, you have the high likelihood of shearing off one of these rivets. So you start those overlapping plates start collapsing over themselves. You
Inhibiting
create
movement all of a
inhibiting
sudden.
movement. You do that to an elbow. It's harder to move your arm.
Oh, wow.
A knee defense that might start collapsing down onto your knee.
So one careful warrior with a small mace could do a lot of damage to a fully armored person.
Could, yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming the other guy's coming at you too.
Fair.
Yeah. But so going into battle, things like maces and warhammers tend to be the sidearm of, a cavalryman. You might have a sword as well, but you would generally be having one of these hanging off your saddle.
This seems to be the least adorned with decoration of the pieces here. Like it is just for kicking ass.
Yeah. I mean, my gut says this isn't a status symbol more than the fact that you were a man who owns a mace, which is a status symbol in its own right.
Sure. I'm sure. Is the copper I see part of like a brazing process? Or?
Yeah, I think it's brazing these flanges into position. And this is super gaudy, only slightly heavier. But it serves the same purpose.
Oh,
but
wow, it is only slightly heavier.
Yeah, and it's because you've gone in, you have a hollow tube instead of a solid one.
Right.
So while it looks much bigger, it isn't a whole lot heavier. This one comes in just shy of 3 pounds.
Wow.
Which, again, we're in the same territory as a sword. It's not a cumbersome thing.
Yeah.
Despite it looking like Sauron should be swinging it around.
It totally does. And I love all these delicate little spikes here, as if those would survive a long battle, right?
Yeah. Well, again, it is decoration.
Yeah.
This probably was more than just a mace. It may have been a sign of command, a sign of status.
Right.
This may have belonged to an officer or just a wealthy gentleman who wanted his ornate mace. I
just love the idea of someone carefully filing these and thinking, someday this will travel through someone's face. This is a horrible thought, but it's exactly what it's built for. Mm-hmm. This really looks right out of the Chronicles of Riddick, man.
Yeah, it is a brutal thing.
Wow.
My choice was between this and like a etched in gilt one. I was like, I gotta go with the file work. This is just great.
It's really lovely. Jeez, crow. I can't believe it never occurred to me that these could be like you said off camera, like a can opener.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you shattering fingers, splitting open rivets, breaking straps, which is something that is written about in by contemporary writers. It's like you make sure you have strong rivets so that they won't shear off on you, or file down the rivet head so it's less likely to catch on a weapon.
Oh yeah. I could also imagine the percussion of a hit could just tear the leather if you knew where to hit.
Potentially, if it's bad leather. There's I think the line was as we become disarmored, describing one of these fights between two armored men. So they're wailing on each other and they're surviving, but the armor itself is starting to come undone a bit.
Oh well, and that would be by design. Like it's supposed to take the abuse so that you don't, right?
Yeah.
All right, tell me about this beautiful.
So this is great. This is a Saxon warhammer from the mid-16th century, and incredibly elegant. You've got this beautiful. It's called the crow's beak or bec de corbin.
The crow's beak is so beautiful. Its point of view on that curve, like someone lovingly got that to where it is.
Yeah, and look at the cross section on it. I mean, it's basically square.
Wow.
Right, and you can get tremendous amount of force. You have the nice belt hook here.
That's what I was wondering. This is the belt hook.
So you're hanging. So
you would literally. I'm not going to do it, but
hanging off your belt or on the saddle.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! I feel like with a real swing behind you, you could put this through a fairly thick piece of steel.
Yeah.
Wow, that is wee but mighty.
Yeah.
And I also love how the simplicity. I mean, there's some dormant and etching down here. Oh my God, it's really beautiful.
And again, this may possible. It's general issue. They had a stockpile in the arsenal, but this also might have been, congratulations, Dieter, you've been promoted. Here's your hammer. You're in charge of these other guys. It's possible.
It's like the watch for working for the company.
Well, the symbol of
Yeah,
your rank. You know,
yeah.
you've got, oh, he's the guy with the hammer. We go talk to him. He's the one in
Right.
charge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's also, there's a little, the thing I kept on thinking of, swagger stick, right? Like a British officer and their swagger
Yeah.
stick. That's a whole weird.
Well, you know, the field marshal's baton.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That might descend from the mace.
That's cool.
Like they started out with maces and clubs, and
Yeah.
then just over time it becomes just this symbolic thing that is vaguely mace-like, vaguely stick-like.
That is so funny because also the conductor's baton starts out as a big tall pole and ends up as this little thing. There's
Yeah, that journey
Yeah.
these days is really interesting.
all right. What is this one with this magnificent parrot beak going
Yeah.
on here?
So this is one of my favorite objects in the collection. What we have here is, on its face, it is a warhammer. I think if you just saw that in the wild, you'd say it's a warhammer.
Yeah.
This is actually broken, and this would have been some 6-7 feet long.
Oh wow.
It's a family of weapons called a poleaxe. Many of them have axe faces or axe on one side, hammer on the other. This one you might just call a polehammer. This is really the weapon of, whereas the mace or the warhammer might be the weapon of a knight on horseback, after his lance shatters.
Right.
This is the weapon of a knight on foot.
Gotcha.
So this is, again, that idea, the can opener. The idea is that you were using one of these in order to defeat another armored opponent. So it is an armor breaker. And where these get used quite prominently, you use them in war, of course, but you also use them, and here's a nice little depiction here, sort of judicial duels, where you have a conflict between two knights or two noblemen.
To settle a dispute.
To settle a legal dispute. It could be a personal dispute, but also legal disputes as well. We have, I say I inherit this, you say you inherit this, or you assaulted my spouse and I need satisfaction. And these very often were duels to the death. If there was a witness who have witnessed you doing something, but you won, the witness would be killed as well. Like it was a brutal situation.
Wow.
And so this is that sort of weapon, and you one of the options, you could use a spear and a sword, or you could use the poleaxe. And with this one, it has a mate that is nearly identical to it. The mate itself is lost, but we know about its existence from watercolors. And it
From
is
watercolors of this piece.
of that piece.
Of that
other
piece.
piece.
Okay.
So slightly different inscriptions, but essentially they seem to be made as a matched pair. The damage on this very much looks like it was made by another warhammer.
Right, yeah, it certainly does.
Poleaxe. So I think the current theory, and there's no way to be certain, is that this and its lost mate were intended for one of these judicial duels, or used in one of these.
Oh, that each person would be given one.
Yes.
Oh man, to settle your dispute.
Yeah.
I'm really grooving on this.
So unfortunately, that seems to be a later addition. Somebody added that to try and probably boost the sale price later on.
And did they hand carve this, or is this a stamp of some kind?
It's engraved in, and this is actually one of the ways you can identify something's not supposed to be there. If you have something sort of heavily engraved like that, it's generally raised up. They leave the extra material in order to cut down so it's proud of the surface.
Right.
Where it's cut into the surface, that, it's not a guarantee, but it could set off some alarm bells.
So this sort of thing might have happened 100 or 200 years ago.
Yeah, this could have happened in the 19th century. And that happened really often. The term is gilding the lily.
That's where that comes from.
So you'll get, probably a borrowed term, but you'll get it a lot with armor. So you're a dealer in 19th century London, and everyone wants to decorate their house with a suit of armor. Well, I can get a shoulder here, and I can get some legs here, and I get a breastplate there, and then you etch all of them to look like it's one suit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that happens to a lot of objects, and it's why you have to take each individual piece and look at it critically, separate of the other pieces as well.
The shape of this is magnificent.
Yeah, it makes me think of a cartoon character.
Yes,
like the eyes.
It's a toucan. It's a Sam the toucan.
And actually, to point this out, so this is an offensive way to attack someone, right? You can hit them with that sort of spike, that beak, but it is also a way to catch an opponent's leg. These become I chose the image of these two knights grappling because this really would often come down to wrestling down onto the ground.
I'm amazed that the armor instruction manuals of the time always have like half of them is wrestling on the ground in armor.
Yeah, because it's so frequently how these contests would end.
Wow. And then from these drawings, it's plausible that the other end of this had a spike on it.
Yeah, very often
well.
it has a spike. This particular fight book and a few others show crazy ends where they have hooks on them and stuff, but none of that stuff survives, so it's not clear if they actually existed or if this was a good idea from the fencing master Talhofer.
I wonder how often these contests were. It strikes me that a proper match between two people was probably an outlier.
Yeah, they knew that it was.
You knew who was likely to walk
God
away.
was not necessarily making this call, right? And it falls out. But this has its roots in sort of Germanic tribal tradition that sort of becomes enshrined for a while and stays on as just dueling.
Right.
Duels in the Americas as well, and it's all from that tradition.
It's so fascinating. That's absolutely gorgeous, Sean. This is a oh yeah.
I have one more piece for you.
Oh no, really?
Which I tucked down below because I wanted to get the honest reaction here.
What the what?
So that is it's a cow-headed mace.
Indeed.
Yeah. So it is evoking the weapon of so the Persian ancient heroes. So the hero Bahram Ghor has a cow-headed mace, and then it is then used by other heroes like Rustam throughout the sort of Persian Book of Kings, the Shahnameh. And so this is a 19th century idea of what that would have looked like. Wow. The whole thing's made of crucible steel, it's beautifully chiseled, damascened, and one of the features I quite like is you'll notice that the nostrils are hollow, the whole thing's hollow, and the ears, when you swing it, it makes a hong.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, does this whistle? I wanted to blow into it. Can I swing it?
Yeah, you can swing. If you get a good swing on it, yeah. And I have to imagine that was intentional.
I'm so sure you're right.
And again, you wouldn't have used this, but it's either a ceremonial piece or just something someone loved to have.
It's so I would imagine if someone handed me one of these, I'd just walk around with it for the rest of my life. It's so gorgeous, and this is all hollow.
Yeah.
So this was
it's made in two halves
and hammered like a piece of armor, potentially.
Yes. Yeah. The whole thing would have been probably worked over small stakes.
Oh my god!
And then it's sort of braised, I think, along the jawline.
Wow! Ooh! Oh, Sean, this is so pretty. Holy cow!
Like
yes, cow-headed mace.
There's, it's not often that actual arms and armor and like fantasy intersect, and this is one of those cases where it's like. This could come right out of a fantasy series.
100%. You'd be like, I don't know if that's very realistic.
Yeah, just wonderful.
Man, thank you. Every time I come, I am educated. Incredible. See you next time. You ready?
Set. All right, cool. All right.
That's the scariest thing I've done in a long time.